I hope you're impressed by the amount of energy that has gone into all of the various proposals, all of the work. You've got both substantive and procedural aspects of getting to an Article 5 convention, of states taking their power to look at the situation and actually address the situations we have in our nation. There's a scriptural provision. This is where there's no vision, the people perish. And we know there's no vision in Washington because we can objectively, quantifiably see that not only is there no vision, I think they may be running around with blinders on. It's been said that it takes a very noble man and woman to plant a seed for a tree that they'll never sit under the shade of. And yet that's what you're being called to do. You're being called to plant seeds that you may never see. And yet that's been the best of America as long as we've been a nation. It says the debtor is the servant to the lender. And we've had a number of instruction throughout this week on some of the lenders to our nation that have intentions that probably would not serve our children and our grandchildren well. They intend to take our nation places that were not part of our founding. When Dave put up his graphs of the debt to GDP and how much was available for growing prosperity, Dave, from the founding of our country until 1930, the debt to GDP was 3%. Until 1930, our nation operated on 3% of GDP. Washington got 3% of GDP. Dave started with 26 and it's projected to be 50. Imagine what the prosperity would be like in our nation. A prosperity we could hardly imagine if we continued to have a national government that was in that same limited government box of 3% of GDP that it operated on for 150 years. Those things are possible. Those are possible, and they're within your power and your ability. George Washington said that if in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers are ever in any particular wrong, let it be changed by an amendment in the way the Constitution designates, but let there be no change by usurpation. Don't just let Washington do it. That's the way that free governments are destroyed. And as you're considering and going back to your states with what you take away from this, I was speaking with a representative here earlier. Imagine in your committees, and you have your transportation committee, and you're all sitting in your various committees, and you have Republicans and Democrats and people from whatever party, and you debate and you hash out ideas and you discuss and you work through these things. And then you vote merely to propose to send those forward, or to propose to not even send them forward at all. But you discuss in committee the various aspects of a variety of problems and situations, and you flesh out the problems, you flesh out the issues, you discuss and debate with both parties actively, and then you send a proposal to the entire body. That's all Article 5 really is. It's an interstate committee. Just like you do all day long, every day long in your legislative service, you have both parties without fear. You get together and come through proposals and work out issues, and then you vote whether or not to send something to the floor of your entire body. And that's this process. Very simply, state representatives meeting in committee, discussing proposals for the well-being of our nation, the balance of power in our nation, and discussing whether or not to send a proposal out to the people to vote. So as you're moving forward from here, I hope you get the sense that it's time to start looking at the delegates that you may be wanting to send to an Article 5 convention. I hope you get the sense that it's time to perhaps begin holding committee hearings in your state about the types of fiscal responsibility proposals that you may want to recommend to your delegates as they convene. I hope you're getting a sense that perhaps, as Rob mentioned, if you believe, as I do, that meeting in convention is nothing more than meeting as an interstate committee of states that consider the anything amendment. I'd be willing to meet to discuss anything with other states in a committee to look at how we move forward for the well-being of our state. And then specifically, there was something that came out of the Arizona Planning Convention. It was called the Phoenix Correspondence Commission. And with that, that was an opportunity to continue to have an ongoing dialogue. And with the Phoenix Correspondence Commission, the idea is that we continue to engage, continue to dialogue. I mentioned earlier that it was Samuel Adams and James Otis in the committees of correspondence. As things were beginning to heat up in Boston, Samuel Adams cooked up a proposal, a petition to discuss their rights as men and as Christians, as people, as Christians, and as loyal British subjects, and what the infringements of their rights were and how they could begin to work together. And initially they went to John Hancock, and John Hancock said, "You guys are way too radical for me." And he said, "Just look at what we've proposed. Just look at this petition. We need to get other people together." And they got that together, sent that out. Within a couple of months, they had 80 communities in Massachusetts working together. Within a year, they had 8 colonies that were networked together to work together for the well-being of the nation and to prevent the harms that were moving forward. And within a year and a half, they had all 13 colonies engaged in an active committee of correspondence. And I would suggest that as we take away from here, you'll get information out from the organizers to opt into something like that. If you wanted to take just a couple of minutes to talk about that, David, go ahead.
What I'd like to turn over is the idea that we want people that want to join the Phoenix Correspondence Commission just on an informal basis to start, but hopefully formalized. There is a Phoenix Correspondence Commission. Tom was in the room that helped design this and what the purpose was, and he's going to ask for you to raise your hand. So Tom.
One of the things that the Phoenix Planning Convention put together beyond the model rules was this Correspondence Commission, simply because states have had a reticent or have had a little ability to carry on a dialogue. And obviously, because of the complexities of what we're talking about here and the depth of interests and need for this to move forward, we need a liaison in each legislative body across the country to be able to help in that process. It does need to be the right person. And we do need to ask for a show of hands for those that would like to be that temporary person right now in their own state, because we have a need of building this communication. Ultimately, there can be someone that your leadership and your part of your legislative body would want to continue in a longer relationship with, but it's clear that a broad communication on an ongoing basis is needed to be able to move this forward. We're looking for your participation and help right now. If you you can text this through the chat element right now within your the Zoom session, and I appreciate your help with this. Our easiest job right these days is to convince people that Congress is never going to be able to deal with this. Every day, our conversation gets easier in that regard. This is the venue, and this is the vehicle for this to move forward. And I appreciate all the efforts of the spokesmen that you've had here today and the dedication of those in attendance and through our Zoom population online. Thank you.